tried not to show too much wrenching in this video. It's more about explaining the hiccups and the parts where we had an issue. So hopefully you find this helpful, and hopefully I covered some of the gaps that were missed by some of the other videos out there.
I just thought I'd give you a rundown of the project we got going on for the 2001 Audi A4 Avant Quattro 5-speed. So putting in new clutch, soft bend clutch. It's a stage 2 daily. It uses a stock flywheel, so hopefully the flywheel's okay. Going to replace the catalytic converter with the 034 Motorsports high flow cat. This is the reason for the project. The bendy part of the exhaust underneath the car gave up. Also doing the timing belt, doing the performance timing belt from RPM. And then, of course, everything needed to go along with that. And then some bushings, the motor mounts, transmission mount, snub nose mount. And we just started this morning. Let's do a little bit of an update, I guess. We just got the airbox off and the 2 top bolts on the cat removed already. Earlier we changed out the snow tires for going back to the summers. And we ran into some issues with stock pipe going up to 034 cat. We'll come back to that and do a different video, but for now I want to show you what's going on underneath and what we just did. So you can see the drive axles here, and the CV has been disconnected. That is using an M8. That we have a pretty good shop here, but this is one of the little tools we did not have. It's a little M8. It's what, 12 teeth to it, and those take off the front drive axles on the Audi A4, and then the rear drive axle actually goes back to a Allen. But what I wanted to show you was disconnecting the 2 electronic components that are the driver's drive axle. There's 2 different clutches in them. There's 1, 2, and I just have a little metal spring that you can pull out of the clip. It's hard to show you. So you can see this metal piece. Just grab, a screwdriver or pliers or whatever, and it just pulls straight out. You can actually see where it's holding in that clip on the sides. Here's another little part I wanted to show you. This is a 10mm that's connecting to the shift linkage, and it's actually going into that hole there, which keeps it in place when you tighten it. So you just need to get that loose, and it should pull free. Right next to the shifter linkage, there's a stabilizer transmission mount up on top. I think it's just a stabilizer bar, and it just uses a big Allen. This is a 5/16, which worked, even though it's not metric. But basically this whole piece here is all one big threaded bolt. And so you can see as I turn this here, and the key fits in, and it's real tight. So you've got to have a big key instead of something on a wrench, because I bought metric stuck specifically to fit onto socket wrench, and it doesn't fit up in there. So luckily there was that big Allen key. Okay. But basically I used a little bit of a extension to get it to break free, and then once it broke, it's just been fingers loosening that. And so after this is detached, we've already detached the shifter linkage and the two electronics that are above this drive axle on the driver's side. And then you just need to do the starter and then the bolts to the motor. Alright, so the exhaust issue, the 034 high flow cat is a great piece. It's beautiful. It's a great looking piece. The only thing is where the exhaust, you see the hole diameter size here. Now look at the stock bendy replacement. Remember, this is the piece that broke in my car. That's why we're doing this. Look at the size variation from where these two are supposed to meet up. Now when you're opening your exhaust, you don't want something to hit and restrict the flow right after the cat like that. They only make the stock replacement in this size. I could not find another piece that would make those two openings happy together. They made another 2.5 inch piece, but that's not going to fit with the stock exhaust that's still on my car. So we're probably just going to have to, grind it out ourselves and remove some metal. But you'd think that 034 selling these high flow cats would make a downpipe that would adapt to the stock exhaust system. That would only make sense. But other than that, this 034 piece really is pretty. It's very pretty. But that's the main issue with these two pieces, is that, sure, you just opened up your catalytic converter, but then you're going to restrict it by meeting the stock exhaust because you don't offer the correct size flange. Seems weird. Alright. The one on top that you cannot see, you have to feel it, and the way we felt it was by on top, going through the engine bay on the passenger side, and then I reached over and felt it's this hole, and I'll show you what's going on this side here, because there's a little lip on this ridge, and I looked up and I saw this one was empty. I was like, oh, it's missing a bolt, it must be gone. So we tried to crank off the transmission before removing this one, and this is the one you can't see. You have to feel it and get your socket on there, and then I think we got it from the top, but you can kind of reach once your catalytic converter and exhaust is gone. You can kind of reach your arm up in there, but I still think we got it from the top. I just wanted to point out that top spot on the transmission where you can't see that bolt. You can't take a photo of it when it's on the car. Just know that that's there, and then you have to take them off. And those are all 16 millimeter sockets. Oh, the other thing I wanted to mention that a lot of people doing this work don't mention. So these cars have a stock dual mass flywheel, and I did my research before doing this project, getting into it, replacing the clutch. And what made me think that I needed to replace the clutch was in third, fourth, fifth gear. Actually, usually most in third and fourth and it only happened 3 or 4 times. But what would happen, I was cruising along 45, 50 miles an hour, and I got onto the throttle, and then the RPMs went woo really fast, like, oh, the clutch is slipping, you know, it's gone. Well, it turns out that can be a symptom of the dual mass flywheel starting to go bad. And the dual mass flywheels, you cannot service. You can't turn them, you can't do anything for them. So if you're getting into your clutch and into your dropping your transmission in your A4, replace the flywheel. It's going to be that simple. Unfortunately, I thought I could get away with not replacing it, and here it is. And there's a test you can do when it's on the ground flat like this. You can't test it when it's in the car. This should spring back to where it is without any motion, and there's also a little bit of wobble to it, which is also not great. It's not as bad as some of the other ones that you can find online, but you're getting into it, so you might as well replace it, because you don't want to be tearing into this again to replace a part that you could have replaced the first time. So I ordered a South Bend clutch kit for the dual mass flywheel. If I was doing it again, I would probably do a single mass flywheel with a different clutch kit, because those clutch kits are dependent on which flywheel you have. And since I was just planning on reusing the flywheel, I ordered that one for a dual clutch, a dual mass flywheel, sorry. And it's a stage 2 daily. And the reason why you can't just, like, I can't use that kit for a single mass flywheel, because the clutch itself is a different size, apparently. So that's kind of a quick rundown of where we are today. And I just ordered up a new dual mass flywheel, so we'll be waiting on that for a few days to get here before we can take the car off the lift. Okay, another update for the 2001 A4 B5 1.8T Quattro Avant. So we're doing the clutch, and one of the things that needs to come out of the way before you can do the clutch is your catalytic converter. So I thought, let's do the 034 high flow cat replacement, because that's awesome and they're beautiful, and they are. You can see what we got going on here. So the bendy part of the stock pipe, here's the stock pipe. You can see it's missing the bendy part from here, because that's what tore and ripped, and we needed a new one anyway, so doing the new clutch just made sense to, you know, get new pieces, right? Well, looking at this pipe versus the OEM replacement, and this is, I ordered this off of ECS Tuning, I think, but this pipe is not as good as the stock pipe. The bends in this pipe actually make it much more restrictive, and do you see that finish? I mean, it's just, it doesn't look good, and it's about a 1/4 inch more narrow the whole length than the stock pipe is. So if you're opening up your exhaust with your high flow cat, and then suddenly the 3-inch hole on your high flow cat meets that little hole, and so the flow that you're gaining from opening up the exhaust is now being met by this super restrictive OEM part, replacement part, even though the OE part has better flow. That being said, they make a 2.5 inch downpipe that you can get aftermarket. That's what I would recommend doing if you're going for the high flow cat, because this opening is so much bigger than either of these that the main restriction is now going to be just immediately after the high flow cat. So you might as well do that downpipe after your cat. That's not going to be as restrictive as the OE. So we're probably not going to use the new part that I ordered. We're probably going to reuse this piece and add on another bendy part to link in the exhaust, and I'll probably send back that other piece just because, you know, this stock part, it's a better piece than this aftermarket replacement. Alright, just wanted to fill you in on that one too. Here's the drive line. One of the things they say about the drive line is to make sure that it doesn't vary more than 25 degrees away from being straight. So when you're taking it out, try to take it out as straight as you can. The other issue we had while removing this was that it pretty much locked in place from the grease at either end. So basically, once you take out the bolts, this thing will just fall loose if it hasn't been basically vapor lock, I don't know, hydro lock with the grease. And so we had to take a rubber mallet and just crank on it quite a bit to get it to break that hydro lock seal with the grease. So once you get the bolts out on either drive shaft, that's not the right, this hub, once you get those bolts out, it's free. You're going to say, no way, Jack, but just hit it a few times with a rubber mallet or a dead blow mallet, you know, nothing metal. But eventually it will just break that hydro lock and you'll have it free. Loosen your center support bolts, but leave them in to hold it until that hydro lock has been broken. And it'll help make it easier to do that. And then we dropped the whole line, obviously, just to make it easier to get the transmission in, and so we're not dealing with that 25-degree angle variance. Just want to talk about the Evolution Import Thor, made in Canada skid plate. Really thick aluminum. Those wings can stay on. You just put it on and off. Basically, just 3 bolts. One there, one there, one there. There's a spacing, a little spacer ring that goes in between the skid plate and the cross piece. And one of the first things you do with your kit is you install these guys in the hole that's already there. There's no drilling. Really nice kit. Highly recommend. It's saved me quite a bit of scrapping and scratching, and you can change your oil without dropping the whole plate if you want to do it that way. I've done it that way once, and worked great. Didn't have any major oil spills or anything like that. So highly recommend the Thor skid plate. It made the car more rigid. It handles the top speed better, and it protects your aluminum oil pan, which is kind of an issue on these cars if you go too low.